1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome everybody to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses. Today only with Ardina Seward because Charles is not feeling well. Charles Stern is infirmed today.
He'll get well quickly.
So we have an interesting show today, Ardina. Why don't you introduce our first two guests?
Okay, we have two moms starting out at the first half hour, Marcia Black and Beatrice, and they are moms of special needs children. And they have some serious concerns about the kids going back to school in September. And the latter portion of the show, in our 3:30 half hour, we will have Alexander Rodriguez, who is running a march on Thursday in Washington for justice for Vanessa Guillen, who was murdered. She's a former soldier. She was in the military, and she was brutally murdered. And all the facts haven't come out yet, and they feel that it hasn't been investigated the way it should. So we're going to start out. We have Marcia and Beatrice on the line. And I know, Marcia, you have to leave in 20 minutes, so we'll start out with you. Now, tell us about your child and what you've been told by the BONE and what your plans are for September and your concerns.
My concern is my daughter. She has PFFD syndrome, where she wears a prosthesis and her left leg is short, and her hip wasn't connected. And basically, I called Yonkers School Board of Education, and I was told that that basically I need to give them some documents, which I always do every year, and provided it with the documents to Dr. Cordero. He's no longer there at the Board of Education. And I also, I should do the survey. So I went on the phone. I started calling the different doctors my daughter has, because last year she was sick very badly. And I had given the documents to them, and this year I made sure I expressed to them that when they said, "Oh, you can do in-home schooling," I said to them, I don't really want anyone in my home because the virus in my daughter's immune system is not very strong, because every year she comes down with respiratory infections, like more than 3 times in 1 month. I normally bring her to the doctors when she has any illness in school. So right now my concern is I work part-time, but currently I'm not working, and basically I wanted to express to them that I don't want anyone in my home. I will do remote learning if I have to, 5 days a week, and also that I prefer to take care of my child myself, and if they have any particular ways where they could have, like, the teachers basically do Zoom or anything like that. I know a school in the Bronx, I have a friend, she works in a Catholic school in the Bronx where we're doing Zoom with the teachers online. If Yonkers could come up with a solution like that where they can still interact with the kids, I would appreciate that, because I don't feel comfortable with my child in school, and she's going to get sick, and then afterwards everybody's going to get sick with the virus at home. And I have an elderly mother, and my mom helps me take care of my child, so I have a lot of concerns about that.
It sounds to me like you sound very stressed out and on the verge of tears. You sound very, very frustrated.
Yonkers school system hasn't been the greatest school system to deal with, because my daughter is like, when I first started with the IEP meetings, they never expressed to me, okay, your child could go into school and get a teacher's aide. It's like one school that was, even for now, for September, between Shiva Chavez and School 15 on the other side of town, those are the only 2 schools my daughter could attend, because she wears a prosthesis, and she uses also a wheelchair for transportation, and she uses a prosthesis, the wheelchair also, whenever we don't have the prosthesis on and we're traveling. So it's like she's limited with the schools that's available in Yonkers. And when she finally got into the school in White Plains, John A. Coleman, I had her out of district for 1 year, and they told me that basically she had to come back into district. But it's a difficult challenge for me to locate schools that have elevators that work, are up to date, and it was a difficult process. I had to go through doctors and get letters to for her to get a 1-to-1 assistant.
Well, what are your options?
I really don't. I'm trying to right now. I'm trying to see by tomorrow. Call the school. I'm going to call the doctors and basically call the Yonkers Board of Education, drop off the letters myself, and try to talk to them about just doing remote learning 100%. Hopefully, they give me the option.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
But it's not a.
Is it possible? We're going to be going to break. Is it possible for you to stay on a little bit longer, or you have to be off at 3:20?
We have
I have to leave out by 3:20.
Okay, so I want to thank you for being on the show today. Well, when we come back, we'll talk more with someone else. Ardina, who's that?
We'll have Beatrice. We have Beatrice on the line, and we'll let Marcia finish a couple more points when we come out of commercial.
If that's possible.
If that's possible.
You're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. And Charles, I hope you feel better and can come back next week. This will be a 7-minute break.
Who are immune compromised to have like a program where the teachers could check in more often instead of going through emails, sending the work. They could go on Zoom, come up with different solutions.
Okay. Hopefully it'll all pan out. It's a tough time, but hopefully Yonkers school system will come through, and best of luck in September. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go to Beatrice. Beatrice, I know that you have some concerns, some major concerns also about your child and what's going to happen.
Yes. The problem with the public schools is that they are so crowded. And at this time, it's so dangerous for our kids to go back to school. But also, it's just that they've been at home for so long, but they also need to socialize with another kids. I asked personally my kids, would you like to go back to school? And they said yes. And I explained to them the dangers of being in a crowded classroom. But they prefer to have their classes at school instead of Zoom. I would love to have them at home receiving classes through Zoom, because this way they don't be in any dangerous situation at school. But it looks like we don't have so many options right now.
Are your kids in the Yonkers public schools?
Excuse me?
Are your kids in the Yonkers public schools or somewhere else?
No, in Yonkers public schools.
And are they special needs children?
Yes.
Okay, and if I may ask, could you describe to us what their special needs are?
Yes, my son is he has autism, and as you may heard, autism kids they don't like crowded. They don't like being surrounded with a lot of people. They are very sensitive. They need to learn one-on-one.
Have you thought about sending your kids to BOCES rather than to the public school? Because BOCES has special ed programs that I'm aware of, and I'm sure Ardina's aware of them as well. And isn't BOCES an option for you?
Not right now, no.
Well, I think you should check with the Board of Education and see if that is an option. Because if it is, I know that they have a bunch of teachers. They have a bunch of campuses all around Westchester. It's not just one place. And that may be a solution for you, because I know some of these BOCES programs have worked online through the end of the school year. And I don't know what they're doing now about that, but if they have an online option for you to have your kids do the classes through Zoom, that might be worth exploring for you.
I probably have to, investigate that. That would be another option. but definitely kids with the special needs, they need more attention, more one-on-one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me ask you, Beatrice, have your children had a lot of experience with remote learning? And if they have done remote learning as opposed to being in school, has that been beneficial?
Social?
Has that been,
has that worked out well for them?
Has that been beneficial to them? Has that helped them at all? The learning.
Yes. But I think not even for not just for special kids, but because I have another daughter who have ADHD also, but she will definitely be happy to go back to school only 2 or 3 days. You know.
Has the Board of Education reached out to special needs parents like you at all?
Do I know more parents like me?
No. Has the Board of Education, has the school system reached out to you and given you updated information during this summer break or no? No, not at all. My daughter needed and my son needed help with the school homework and all the work that they were doing, and I asked them, can you please contact me with a specialist on or tutoring so they can get help? And even if you have help from them, there are many other troubles that as a parents we go through. Like a friend of mine, she has 4 kids, 3 special needs. They only have 1 computer at home, right? Yeah.
Not all of us are we can buy more computers for our kids.
Well, if you go to YonkersPublicSchools.org and you look on the left-hand side, the second thing listed in blue says advocacy. I would reach out to them. I would reach out to the PTA and find out if there's something they can do as well for your children and for you to make going back to school, whether it's remotely or in the classroom, a reality for you. Because Ardina and I are both really happy that you are spending the time with us on the telephone, and we're enjoying our conversation with you based on that. But we really want to provide help and some guidance, right, Ardina?
Absolutely. And even getting the Yonkers City Council persons involved. I mean, they represent you, so therefore they should also be advocates for you. Yeah,
you got to get out, but you got to get out there and push this yourself. Apparently they're not going to come to you. You haven't heard from anybody all summer. Now it's only a little over a month into the summer. I understand that, but I think advocacy starts at home, and I think your heart's in the right place. I think you need to actualize some other streams where you can find a way to get help for your children who desperately need it. I think this is a problem that goes beyond special needs kids. I mean, these questions are going on all around the country, and I don't know how many school systems have workable solutions I don't think anyone has a solution in any school system that's going to work for everybody. I think it's going to be a patchwork no matter what goes on. We're going to be going to break again, and when we come back, we're either going to have a guest or during the break, I may call a friend of mine in Texas who can talk about what it's like living with COVID in the state of Texas. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. I'm Peter Moses with Ardina Seward, and we're going to be right back after a short commercial break, so please stay tuned and don't go away.
WVOX. Let's return to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses on 1460 WVOX.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. This is Westchester Eye on the radio. I am Ardina Stewart along with Peter Moses, and our third leg, Charles Stern, is out ill, but he's listening. So, Charlie, we hope you feel our third
leg.
Well,
this is new information.
3 legs, 4 legs, whatever.
Okay.
But Charlie is a very important component of the show, and we miss him. But he'll be back, I think, next week. And We are talking about the dilemma of mothers with special needs. We have Beatrice.
And then we're pivoting to Vanessa Guillen.
And then we're going to pivot to Vanessa Guillen. We'll have Andrew Rodriguez. But for the next minute and a half, Beatrice, we'll wrap it up with you. And I don't even know where to begin. What will you do if you do not have school for your child in September?
That will be so terrible, because even though we have support through the internet, they have so many tutoring, they still need one-on-one. They need that support. So I really don't want my kids to go back to school completely, a full day, or for a whole week, because right now at this point I don't know where the solution is.
Well, you know something, I don't think anybody does at this point. But if anybody has a clue, it should be the Yonkers Board of Ed and hopefully
and the PTA,
and hopefully they'll have their act together sooner than later. If not, then you're going to be back on the air with us, and we're going to talk about why and how you're going to handle it.
Thanks very much for appearing on our air, ma'am. We have to move on to another subject, but thank you very much for your time. Ardina, why don't you introduce the next guest, because it's someone that you are bringing in here.
There was to describe it as a heinous murder is to understate it, but a young, very beautiful 20-year-old Latina soldier by the name of Vanessa Guillen,
who was a top student in her high school, was murdered, brutally murdered. And the murder was investigated. They do have some suspects, but there were a lot of circumstances regarding the murder that are rather murky, and there are concerned folks who want to have a more thorough investigation. Now, there is a movement called No Mas, which has originated in Texas, where I believe she's from Houston.
She's from Houston, and they're going to have a march this Thursday in Washington, a march for more recognition of the case and to further the investigation of the case. And the founder of the march is Andrew Rodriguez, who's calling in from Texas. So, Andrew, take it away.
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yes, hear you loud and clear.
Fine.
All righty, perfect. Yeah, so, Thursday we'll be in D.C. with the family. This is an event that, the family's lawyer set up and is calling pretty much for all hands-on action, statewide action, countrywide action, to make sure that, Vanessa gets justice, because the manner and the circumstances surrounding this is just unmanageable, and I can't even, we can't even fathom how the family feels. So, we've been doing marches, No Mas movement, in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. We've actually gone in front of Fort Hood with the family as well. But this Thursday is real pivotal in getting justice for Vanessa Guillen as we march in Washington, D.C.
What went wrong with that investigation, Andrew, in your opinion?
So I feel like there was a lot of loopholes that should have been filled. First and foremost, the family deserves the utmost transparency and respect. And I feel like, not just me, but the nation feels like the military did not give them that. There was just loopholes from the time when when she disappeared to the military actually even looking for her. It's kind of alarming and crazy that, we have had people in the military. We have a lot of members of No Mas that were veterans and kind of know how the process works, right? So if there's a piece of equipment missing on the base, they shut it down, and if you're off that day, they make you come in and they search. For us, it's unfortunate that the military's point of view basically says that Vanessa Guillen, her life is valued less than a piece of equipment. The other thing that's pretty scary is upon searching and looking for Vanessa, once, the family got attention about this case and got kind of media widespread, they found the body of Gregory Morales, kind of in the same area where they found Vanessa, another Fort Hood veteran who they considered AWOL and a deserter. And I guess it didn't look good enough, but ultimately ended up finding him as well. So there's just a lot of loopholes in where the military dropped the ball for this. They kept giving the family and even media, when you talk to media outlets that keep pressuring and asking the military for answers, they kind of give them really just brief answers that just don't make sense.
Well,
so,
why do you think the military dragged its feet in advising the family, and then it took them 9 weeks to find her body?
So I think, this is an ugly situation, right? And I don't think the military wants to take fault in this, because it leaves a black eye in the military, and it leaves a black eye, especially when people, want to enlist, and the military want to meet their quota for enlistment. So I think they know what happened. I think they know more than what they said happened, and I think they've known for a while, but they were trying to just drag their feet as long as they could to tidy up the situation, if that makes sense.
For the listening audience who is not familiar with the case, can you just briefly walk us through the circumstances?
Yeah, so Vanessa Guillen is from Houston, Texas, 20-year-old beautiful Latina from Houston who, upon graduating, decided to serve her country. She was stationed in Fort Hood. Recently, in the past few months, she had been relaying to her mom and her sisters that she had been sexually harassed by a sergeant within her unit. I had, at this point, there was no, CID complaint within the military, and we've come to find out that there's many victims that don't report sexual harassment due to fear of retaliation, but there was somebody sexually harassing her. Ultimately,
that person was a sergeant, according to her.
Correct. Yep, it was a sergeant, according to her. As the search continued for months. They did ultimately Texas EquiSearch, who's out here based in Texas, but they kind of go all over the country searching for people. Found her body and her remains, which were later identified to be, unfortunately, Vanessa's. And then as, more widespread came and news outlet came, they had a quote-unquote suspect, which was somebody in her unit. We're coming to find out that the story that their military is telling us, the people, is that this person who is a suspect basically bludgeoned her to death inside the armory room and left the base, went to go get his materials to do what he needed to do, came back on the base, loaded her up.
And his girlfriend participated in this.
Yeah, so his girlfriend also participated in this.
And his name, by the way, for listeners who aren't really aware of the case, his name is Aaron David Robinson. He's 20 years old, or he was 20 years old. He ended up committing suicide. And his girlfriend, apparent girlfriend, is named Cecily Ann Aguilar. So go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so, upon, once the investigation kind of veered their eyes on him, upon getting him, he supposedly, killed himself when they were, close to arresting him. And then, obviously, evidence led to his girlfriend's participation as well, in which she's currently incarcerated. But, the circumstances, like I said, around this whole thing is just, it's crazy. It's unfortunate that it hasn't hit widespread across the country, because this is something that we should definitely be focused on.
No question. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. It's just a tragedy all the way around.
It is. And it's unfortunately, when you hear about the military and read about the military, the fact that that women are harassed seems to be fairly commonplace. And women being brutalized on bases or off base in the military, that seems to happen with great frequency. But when somebody gets killed, the least the Army can do, or whatever armed force that person belongs to, is investigate and find the body in less than 9 weeks and keep the family apprised of what happened to their family member and how hard they're looking for the body and then for the killers. So we're going to be speaking more with Andrew after this break. This will be our last break before our final quarter hour. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. Please stay tuned because this is an interesting show and one that I think you'll gain some knowledge from.
WVOX. Let's return to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses on 1460 WVOX.
We are back. And again, I want to thank the audience for sticking with us. You are listening to us on WVOX 1460 AM. This is Westchester Eye on the radio. And we can also be heard on the Red Blue Talk page on Facebook. And we are talking today with Andrew Rodriguez, who's called in from Texas. And we're discussing the terrible, tragic end of Vanessa Guillen. Guillen, who was a lovely young Latina who was killed. And that was on
April 22nd, and they didn't find her body until June 30th.
While she was in the military. So the question is...
At Fort Hood, Texas.
In Fort Hood, Texas. So the question is, what took the military so long to find out about this young woman? And that leads me to my question. Andrew, do you think that this is a pattern that happens to women who have enlisted in the military and they're not duly monitored?
So it's alarming because in this particular Fort Hood, this kind of like a known issue, unfortunately. And then women in the military, we were statistically looking at some statistics that we were given, and there's about 14,000 cases a year that, unfortunately, of sexual harassment within the military, and that's just the ones that are reported. You can only imagine what those numbers would be if everybody reported and didn't have a fear of retaliation. So it looks like it is a repetitive culture within the military. At some of these events that we've hosted, we've had veterans from 20, 30 years ago come and speak about their situations of sexual harassment in the military. So, unfortunately, with Vanessa's death, it is bringing a lot of things to light. So it is definitely a repetitive culture within the military.
I want to ask you, too, how much, this is going to sound somewhat abstract, but for a while there was a program with DACA where immigrants could enlist in the military, and that was in exchange for citizenship after a certain period. Now, I wonder how many Latina women enlisted in that program and had been sexually harassed and then were concerned about speaking up because that could jeopardize their citizenship status.
Yeah, that's also definitely another portion of unreported sexual harassment cases in the military. I think you have a valid point, and I think that there's probably thousands of women who've gotten that option. It's an option where you come to this country for however means, and they give you a pass to be a citizen. And I'm sure a lot of people took that. It's just unfortunate that these women who devote their lives to, whether it's for citizenship, at the end of the day, they serve the country that they're in and for the safety of all of us. And in return, this is the type of treatment they get. It's unacceptable. And, me, myself, and my co-founder of NOMAS, we're not going to tolerate things like that here. And, we're just going to keep fighting.
Unfortunately, military history when it comes to dealing with non-whites has been an abomination for a very, very long time. I mean, look at what happened after World War II or during World War II. Blacks and whites could not serve together. They had separate and unequal access to things. There was a massacre in Malmedy in France where many African American soldiers were killed in that horrible incident. And when they got back from the war, blacks and Latinos and other minorities, Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans, when the war ended were vilified. And they put their lives on the line, and yet somehow the citizenry of the United States did not react favorably to them, even though they were veterans like anybody else, and they were not treated as such. And I imagine in Texas that's a very powerful memory.
Yeah, we have come to understanding here in Texas. It's a very diverse, culturally, politically diverse state. But we have come to realize that, especially with the situation within the military, it's very behind in the times, right? Along with history in the military, which speaks for itself. About maybe a little over a year now, the military did accept women in combat roles. And while policies and SOPs may have changed within the military, the biggest thing that needs to change in order for them to be current and respect some of those changes that they've made is they have to change the culture within the military. The culture is super outdated. It's an organization that was majority men. Justice needs to be served for the Guillens, and the culture within the military service needs to be changed as well. It's 2020. It's time to get with the times.
Were you a member of the military at any point?
Excuse me?
Were you a member of the military at any point?
No, so I'm a military brat. My dad was a drill sergeant in the military for 25 years. I've been to numerous Army bases growing up. I remember, fond memories going and playing on the military base. But that's kind of what makes this ordeal bittersweet because, I'm super prideful of my military roots. So when this situation happened, you can understand the disappointment that I had, hearing about this and how it was handled.
Well, you talked about the diversity of the politics and the people of Texas, and you have a senator, a Republican senator, who has at least some Latino blood, Ted Cruz. Have you reached out to any members of Congress, whether it be the House of Representatives or the Senate, to try to get them involved in this issue?
So we have had the privilege to have state officials, local government officials at some of these events that we've had. We've came in contact with Sheila Lee Jackson. She's been to multiple of these events. Beautiful woman, stood with us and promised the Guillen family that there would be a congressional investigation. And that was on July 4th. Not even 2 days later, there was 87 members of Congress that signed to have a congressional investigation in this matter. So, we met with her. We've met, obviously, with our local officials.
What about the Republican senators?
Joaquin Castro, he was at our San Antonio event.
That's great.
As we all know, he was a presidential candidate. Yes. So we do have some following, and we do have some support from our local government officials.
And what about the two senators?
So Ted Cruz, we haven't heard anything from him yet, unfortunately. But this is an ongoing battle. Every day, this army for Vanessa and the Guillen family gets bigger and bigger. People want to become more a part of it as they get aware. So I'm sure we'll get more of that support, especially with a statement as bold as going to Washington. Like I said, the main focus right now is getting the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill passed and making sure everybody's educated on this situation. You wouldn't believe how many lovely females out there want to enlist and have no idea of the situation that's going on.
No, and so we're closing in on the final 5 minutes of the show, so I want to make sure that we get information about your march, which will happen in Washington, I believe, this Thursday, correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is. So it'll be this Thursday in Washington. We're going to meet at the Capitol and march down to the White House. 9 a.m., there's supposed to be a bill presented for the I Am Vanessa Guillen, and then followed by the march. Here in Houston, however, we're going to be caravanning from Houston to D.C. So there's going to be a few vehicles driving from Austin, San Antonio, meeting us here in Houston, and we're going to head out Wednesday morning at 5 in the morning.
Okay, I just briefly read about that there's a hurricane threatening Texas, and having only been there once, forgive my ignorance of the geography in Texas, but would weather conditions are you threatened by weather conditions coming up?
So I don't think so. We had it was Hurricane Hannah, which made landfall Saturday
Yes.
And it really hit the Corpus Christi area down, lower to the Gulf. Fortunately, here in Houston, we were kind of blessed. We just got some rain, but everything's looking clear for the rest of the week from what we can see. So we just plan on driving up and getting there safely and making sure the message is heard.
No, that's a laudable thing. Do you have any clue how many people you think will be there?
So for right now, I know we have probably like 7 vehicles confirmed. We are still in the process of trying to get Team Vanessa, which is basically a group of females that played soccer with Vanessa and supported, and actually was the group that started this whole thing and made Vanessa's story aware. We're still trying to get maybe a bus, so they're taking donations for that. But as of right now, there's about 6-7 cars that are driving up.
Well, it's a start. I hope that there are some people coming from across the country who are not just coming on your buses, but are coming on their own, because that would make a powerful image.
Yeah, so we actually have people driving from North Carolina,
wow,
California. It just so happens that we're meeting in Houston, but there's people that are driving from these other cities, such as, again, North Carolina, L.A., Miami, and just because they feel that this is a very important moment in the fight for minorities, and especially Vanessa Guillen.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for being on the air, and que siga la lucha. I hope that I hope you get a lot of people, and that people contribute to the cause.
And how can they contribute? How can people, if they want to send money, how can they do that?
So here at No Mas, the cause right now obviously is fighting injustice for Vanessa Guillen. Once this is done and over and justice is served, No Mas is still going to be here, and we're going to still be fighting injustice.
And what's your website?
We need your
what's
website.
Your website?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is your website?
So our website where you can reach us at is nomasmovement.com. There you can find information on donating for charity marches. You can volunteer, because we always need volunteers. This movement was really kind of like a grassroots community movement. So
I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm going to have to cut you off because we only have a few seconds left. Ardina, thank you very much, Andrew, for your time. Ardina, do you have any guest ideas for next week?
Well, people should pay attention to St. Paul's School in Yonkers, which was closed by the Archdiocese, and I'm choosing my words here. The parents just basically got the shaft, and we're going to try and
the students,
and we're going to try and have a spokesperson from that movement on next week. So folks need to keep an eye on what's happening with Catholic school closings, particularly in Yonkers.
And I hope you all can stay cool and out of the sun. It's going to be a really hot week. Take care now.